Crusader Kings 3 has been out for a little over 2 years now, having come out in September of 2020. Coming into its third year, it is a game that pops up on the radar for people every major Steam sale, or maybe they've just seen their favorite streamer play it. In this video, I'm going to break down Crusader Kings 3 to answer if the game is worth it in 2023. We'll start the video off by going over a high-level breakdown of CK3, discussing the combat war system in the game, as that's always a big question people have, and then close the video out with a buyer's guide to all the DLC available to the game to help you in deciding which ones are right for you. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in the video so you can decide if you want to stick around. So let me give you my opinion on the game. I have over 500 hours in CK3. I have extensive guides covering nearly every little aspect of the game on the channel to help you, or anyone for that matter, understand the rather complex system of it all. But I absolutely love this game. I'll be transparent and say that there is a very steep learning curve up front, as this is a Paradox grand strategy game. But once you understand the initial mechanics, the game becomes like your very own version of Game of Thrones. A lot of the game is really kind of playing by the numbers, or at least trying to set up the right scenario. But there's also a lot of fun of role-playing scenarios, such as, what if the Byzantine Empire had converted to Islam, or what if the Romans restored the empire of old? There are so many cool scenarios you can run in this game. Outside of that, the personal intrigue in your court as well as those around you can lead to an amazing domino effect of you spending hours on a scheme that results in a waterfall of succession issues, kingdom fracturing, and land grabs for your enemies that creates a high that is unparalleled in most modern strategy games. The game just has so many fun overlapping mechanics that even after 3 years, I still find myself having an itch to start a new playthrough every few months. Also, on that note, there are tons of DLC, with a whole year of DLC planned from Paradox, so there's plenty of support in the near and far future for this game. But that's my overall opinion of the game, its state, and the future of Crusader Kings 3. If you plan on picking up CK3, you can directly support the channel by using my Nexus Store linked in the description and pinned comment. Nexus gets Steam keys directly from the developer, and that's a great way to support me as well as my mini Aussie puppy. Also, if you'd like to jump in on any of these CK3 streams I run, which there are plenty of, you can find a link to my Twitch where I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays every week. But let's get started here on whether or not Crusader Kings 3 is worth it in 2023. So to start us off, let's go through what is Crusader Kings 3. So when you boot the game up and you go into a new campaign, you have two different start dates to choose from, 867 AD or 1066. And these are pretty pivotal points in history, but for the most part, you can then choose specific scenarios like, hey, here's rags to riches, and it's these specific characters, or Iberia in pieces, which is kind of linked to the Fate of Iberia DLC in a different way. The Fate of England, you have all these really cool, fun things to jump into. Or you can press play as any ruler in 1066 or 867, in which case you'll just jump into the map. You'll see the entire map and you just kind of pick whatever you want to do. So that way you can just say, hey, you know what? I don't want to play any of the ones that they've suggested for me. I want to go over the Holy Roman Empire. And you know what? I don't want to play as the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. I want to play as the Duke of Bavaria. So you have pretty much every single location on the map to choose from. You don't want to play the Duke? Well, man, you can go pretty granular here and play all the way down to the Count. You cannot play the Baron, which is below the Count. Even moreover, you can press this button and completely design your own ruler. Whatever you want to do, you can have fun with it, enjoy yourself. You can make them from the ground up. You can copy and paste this template for the ruler that you create and share it online. You can actually pull them from people that have played them online and say, hey, you know what? I want to play Uhtred, son of Uhtred in Bebemba. And you can do that if you want. You've got tons of options to kind of address how you want to play this game, which is very fun. It's kind of the sandbox portion of it, and one of the best things about this game. So I'm going to jump into Duke Robert of Apulia, or Robert. Probably one of my favorite playthroughs, and I have a whole video on this. And I'm going to give you a kind of a high level of how this game really operates, because when you play a strategy game, you're thinking of moving a bunch of pieces across the map, and you're kind of wondering how this game really works as it kind of coincides with that play style. This is a medieval dynasty simulator. You are worried about your family, its progression through time, and the specific people that then rule over that family or the location that you have control of. So I'm playing Duke Robert, so I am a duke, and I have control of the Duke of Apulia, the Duchy of Apulia, as well as some other locations here. And really this is about managing titles, which sounds super boring when you think like, oh, great, cool, man, I don't be like a notary over here. Like, no, it's actually a little bit more complex than that. Because if I look at this character, he has a bunch of children, and then I have an heir. So I have to worry about how my heir is brought up, what kind of education he gets so that I can take advantage of that education when my character dies. Because you're not just playing as Duke Robert of Apulia, like if you're playing Civ, right? If you play Civilization, you're just the same guy throughout the whole entirety of it. No. You're playing every single heir, and you have to deal with the succession crisis you are going to deal with, just like medieval rulers dealt with. You have to deal with your innovations, these kind of basically little things that allow you to push the envelope or push into different directions. Like, you know what? Right now, my succession, all my lands are going to be split up by all my kids. That's because I don't have the primogenitor succession, which basically makes it so that the oldest son gets everything, like you would kind of see in a medieval movie, right? So managing all this is the fun of the game. And then getting the respective duchies to then create a kingdom, to then get multiple kingdoms, to then create an empire of your own. Or you know what? You don't need to use the game's empires. You can press this button and found a new kingdom, found a new empire, and make your own kind of borders as you see fit, which is a really cool portion of this. You can do a lot of really cool things, and when you take a look at these decision tabs, it'll give you kind of a rough outline of the land and what you can do, but there are certain things that will give you certain decisions. Like if I go over here and switch characters, let's switch over to this character over here. Well, I've got Avenge the Battle of Tours. So this was the battle against Charles Martel, where the Islamic forces fought at the Battle of Tours in France, were repelled, and it actually ended the expansion of Islamic forces into Western Europe. But I can avenge that as an Islamic ruler in Al-Andalus. So you have all these really cool kind of circumstances you can jump into, and it's very fun. And outside of that, your character has its own progression system in a lifestyle choice, which is basically like a talent tree, if you want to think of it from a lot of other RPGs. You say, hey, you know what? I want to go really hard in the paint on war and having a good army. I'll click Marshal here. And then I've got 3 different trees that have different emphasis within that specific lifestyle. So, for example here, Marshal, we can go gallant and really focus on having really good knights and also having really good courtship and romance options. Or I can go strategist and I can make it so all of my men-at-arms, which are basically better versions of my military, have even better perks attached to them and whatnot. Or maybe I want to go into stewardship and I want to work on being an architect, or work on better taxes and getting a lot more money. Or maybe I want to work on administrator over here and get stuff that helps out with my court and how it kind of works with or against me. Or maybe I want to go into intrigue and seduce my opposition's wife and plant a child that is actually my child on the throne. You have all these cool things you can do, which is a really fun portion of this game. And like I said, this also links into the future of your children. So if my character has an heir, all right, well, I want this heir. He's got a lot of stewardship, so let's focus him on being a steward. Or if I say have a child, I want him to be a spy master or something like that. I'd put him into the intrigue kind of education fold of things. There's a lot of little nuance to this game, because it's not just simply about having a location and grabbing land as fast as you can, like every other strategy game. It's about marrying into alliances by using your children, either your daughters or your sons, to solidify strong alliances, solidify future claims to expansions, or whatever it is you're trying to do to really kind of increase your odds in the game. You've got a whole entire court you can take advantage of. Where's the court? Where am I doing? Aha. You have an entire court you can take advantage of, that you can say, hey, you know what? I've got this court tier here. I'm going to marry this person in to a very high intelligence individual because I want a really good court tutor in my, court. Because all these court tiers then hold court positions, which then give you bonuses to certain things. The court tutor, for example, here has it so that we can improve the education outcome of our children, making them better at what they're working on. And then all that kind of comes into your, let's go, where are we? Aha. It comes into our council. So our council is held by various people within our territory, our vassals, as it were. And you can assign them to chancellor, marshal, spy master, steward, or some type of clerical role, depending upon which character you're playing and which religion you are. And then you've got your spouse who will then aid you in one or all of these. So all of these things kind of layer over what you're doing to really cause you to think about a lot of different actions. And talking about this on a high level kind of seems very overwhelming, but I promise that it's like once you really understand, okay, I booted the game up, first thing I'm going to do is look at my council, swap out bad counselors. Okay, this guy's a terrible chancellor. Oh, but I got a really good chancellor right here. I'll put that person in place instead. This one's an okay, or this is a terrible spy master. Who's a good spy master? This is a better spy master. I'll put that person in instead. So you learn to manage every little aspect of it at the very start of the game, and then you expand to some of the harder concepts as you move out from just simply quote unquote turn one or start of game. It seems super overwhelming, and when you jump in, it will be overwhelming. And this is a game that you will spend some time learning, but not too much to the point where you're like, I'm never going to get this. Every playthrough, every failure, you learn exponentially more about how each thing operates. And this is definitely a game where, you experience a bunch of little dilemmas that say, hey, would you like to do this or that? You save the game, try both. And that's how you really learn this, is by really crashing and burning a bunch of times. And crashing and burning is really fun in this game. You might sit there and go, okay, I'm going to expand over to this territory over here. Uh-oh, I expanded too far too fast. My populace is unhappy. All right, well, now I've got a civil war to deal with. Oh man, someone else is attacking me? Oh great, I just died and my son took over and he's only 11. He can't do anything and he's also hunchback. Like, there's so many chaotic things that can happen in this game if you don't know how to manage it, that you'll learn very quickly how to manage each one. And it creates a very fun learning and very chaotic learning environment that is, I think, at the end of the day, really fun to learn from, but also just kind of stressful and cool at the same time. That's the very high level of this game. There are a lot of other nuance attached to it. I didn't want to break into every little bit of nit and grit because, like I said, it will overwhelm you when you first take a look at it. I'd recommend, if you do jump into this game, play the game's tutorial. You are not good enough at any strategy game to bypass that tutorial. Even if you've played CK2, Crusader Kings 2, it just helps to understand how this game frames the systems, because they are similar to Crusader Kings 2, but they are different. I was like, I'm not going to need to play that tutorial, and I was crying real fast in this game. So this is a game you do need to kind of take your time with to begin with. But once you learn the systems, you'll blitz through a lot of the early portions of it very quickly, and you'll be able to take advantage of a lot of fun stuff. I haven't even gotten into the fact that you can change your religion. You can create your own religion within a specific faith. You can swap out your culture. You can have two cultures hybridize. You can diverge it. You have all these different cool little options for every little thing in this game. That's what makes it very fun and very engrossing. Now that we've discussed really things on a high level, I think the biggest question a lot of people have is how war and combat really resolves itself in Crusader Kings 3, because expanding your army, your empire, your whatever, is a very huge portion of this. So I'm going to run you through very quickly some of the war and battle mechanics so that you have an understanding of what's going on. I've created this really cool Baltic empire during one of my streams where we started as just little Livonia over here and expanded into this massive empire, which is a very fun thing to do. So outside of that, what we're going to do now is click on Poland, right click, declare war, and we have all these different wars to take advantage of. We have basically de jure wars, which are wars that are based off of a title that I own. I have this duchy, so I'm going to war for any of the titles that are attached to it. Or this county, I have a claim to it, so it's de jure. I can basically go to war because I have a claim to it, so we're going to go to war for that. I'm not going to do this. We have claims of our vassals. This duke right here has a claim to this county, so we can go to war for it. Or, depending upon your religion and your setup with your culture and your religion, you can do holy wars. I am going to do a holy war for a kingdom. Now, Poland is comprised of 3 different kingdoms right now, this whole block of land. The Kingdom of White Rus, which is right here, the Kingdom of Germany, which obviously is right here, or the Kingdom of Poland. And I can see here that within this target title, all titles held by Catholic rulers are seized, and any Vitalist rulers are vassalized by you, because I am Vitalist. And then you may also, you may only attempt 1 holy war against a kingdom tier title per lifetime, which is what this is. But if I click this drop down, it tells me exactly kind of what's going on with this war. You know, you're going to receive these lands. This is what's going to happen. Fervor, blah, 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 blah. You don't really need to worry about that. It'll then tell you what the cost is. It might cost you piety. It might cost you prestige. It's one or the other, depending upon what you are, who you are, and what's going on. Then I'm going to press declare war. And this is what happens. We are immediately at war right now. Am I paused? I'm paused. And from this portion of war, I can then call people to my aid. So you can call allies to war. Let's go ahead and click on this. And then we'll choose the King of Denmark. So I can have him join in on this war. It will cost me some prestige, but then he will take his forces. If I click on him, 645. Not the best ally to call, but still I'm trying to make a point here. So we're going to call him to the war. I can call this guy to the war. He's got like no forces anyway. He's a mercenary, but whatever. This is a mayor. He's got damn near nothing. I'm not even going to do it, and he won't even accept it anyway, so it won't matter. So I'm going to call them to war. Poland, on the other hand, is going to call his, or well, her ally to war, which is that person right there. It's a vassal. He can't call them to war because they're already within his territory. They're coming to war anyway. Any ally you're called to war is someone that's outside of your existing territory. You can ally with your vassals, and you can call them to war, which means you pull in more of their troops. But for all intents and purposes, you don't really worry about those alliances as it pertains to war, because you're more worried about Poland summoning France and its 3,100, or Holy Roman Empire and its girthy 14,000 troops. You're worried about those kind of alliances. So now that we've wasted 4 minutes talking about all that, let's show you what the war actually looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and press this military button. Here are all of my men-at-arms. Then here are my levies. Levies are, of course, just simply peasants for the most part. That's the easiest way to kind of describe it. Then my men-at-arms are my professional soldiers, which are going to do the bulk of my damage and fighting for me, because they give me bonuses or penalties according to the type of unit they're fighting. Hovering over these archers, well, I've got 2 units of them. These guys are going to do additional damage to skirmishers because they are an archer. And they'll have bonuses in either forests or taiga, but they also are really good in the winter. Compare this to the light horsemen, who will counter archers and will have bonuses in dry lands and plains, but have penalties in all these different types of terrain. So that's just kind of a unnecessary description, but it's so that you understand how men-at-arms kind of play into things. So we're going to click this button for a rally point. Now, press this button over here, and I want my troops to assemble right here. And when I press this button again, I can choose to raise everyone at one location, or I can raise just the men-at-arms. So I'm going to press Control, left click. Everyone's coming right here, versus splitting across to all my land and just coming, like basically, you look at this little thing, it's their supply. You look at this location, this is the total amount of supply that can be allowed in this location. So if I hadn't pressed Control, they'll swap to every single county around to not eat up the entire supply, but it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to blitz through this to quickly show you. Now we're going to speed up time, because it has to basically, they've got to call all the men together, and I'm going to walk forward. So basically this is how this works. I go from location to location trying to grab land from the enemy. I see this is where their capital is, and that's good because this is my target, my war target. The capital of the place you're fighting isn't always the war target. The war target is the capital of the title you're trying to seize. I'm trying to seize the Kingdom of Poland, which is just this chunk right here. And that is, of course, where Warsaw is. So, is this Warsaw? Oh, it's Krakow. I'm done. I'm so dumb. But you can kind of do this piecemeal by sieging apart each and every little single city. I'm going to get to that over there. And, yeah, sure, whatever. And once you take these little things, it will, let's go, there. It will push up this bar right here. Total war score is at 4%. I want to get it to 100% by either capturing as much territory, capturing an heir, or the actual head of state. So if I capture the war leader here, I will get a 100% war score and I'll win the war. You can kind of do this by blitzing the capital and hopefully pulling the person into your dungeon. And you get it from fighting battles and holding objectives, which would be the actual Kingdom of Poland is the objective. So going and taking that would give me war score for all this. So we've taken that one territory. Let's just go jump into a fight and show you what that looks like. And that whole time we were sieging. That's how sieges are done. Sieges right here, you can see it's just going through this process of doing like these little behind the scenes rolls that you can't really see. So I'm just going to fast forward into this and okay, there we go. Got into the war way too quick. So what happens here is you go through 4 phases of combat. You have early battle phase, which is what we're in right now. And then it goes through each one of these. It goes like assembling, early battle, late battle, and then like retreat. And basically what's happening is, if I hover over this, there is a roll that is done. And that I get advantages because of my commander skill, and my sanctity of nature, and then the battle roll I've made, which is 10. That's that number right here. That's this number over here. So basically, those rolls keep happening. My advantages factor in, and then it's that total versus each other. Then it's factored too across all my men-at-arms, and then what their men-at-arms are countering and how I'm countering them. And also lastly, my champions. My champions add again into my overall kind of quote-unquote battle score. It's more complex, but it's me just kind of breaking it down on a high level. And then I've got my soldiers, their soldiers, the soldiers that have been routed, and their soldiers that have been routed. And essentially, I'm just going to unpause here. This is just going to keep going. It's going to say a champion's been maimed, either on my side or their side. They get killed. So you have vassals that can be people in these little conflicts. You can have people of your court in these conflicts. You have all these champions here that kind of help sway this one direction or the other. But this is how wars and combat are fought, all by these kind of behind the scenes roles. And also the terrain does factor this, right? Movement speed, combat width. So the amount of soldiers that can actually fight in this fight is 90% of both of our troops. If it were mountains, it would say 50%. So only 50% of our troops can fight at one time. It's actually a little bit more convoluted than that, but still, this is war. Yeah, okay, cool. And then at the end, yeah, great, whatever. All these decisions are popping up while I'm trying to exposit about war. A child has been born. So we've been defeated, and what's happening now is they're pursuing and we're retreating. So there is a roll that is done for the men-at-arms based off of this value and this value. The enemy is going to use their pursuit total value across all their men-at-arms to see how many extra casualties they can inflict on my soldiers, and that score will be marked against my screen. We're screening out the retreat, basically. So all my screen value is going to be put against their pursuit value, and as this number drops, oops. Well, as that number drops, I lose more and more men. But basically what happened after that was we had a bunch of people that were captured, including my really good marshal there. So all these things are how wars are fought. It results in casualties, it results in captured individuals within your court that you can then ransom back and forth. That's the way the game is really played. Or you can just straight up execute them. If they don't hold land, you can convert them over to your side. Like if you have prisoners in here, you can actually convert them. You have a bunch of weird things and cool things that you can be done with war. Now, let's take a look at this character over here. Had I gone for her, I can actually see she's leading an army. If I hover over her, she says that she is located over here. If I had actually fought and beat that army, there's a chance that I would have actually captured her, thus ending the war. But that is the gist on war and combat in Crusader Kings 3. It's probably one of the most asked questions about how this game's conflicts are resolved, and hopefully this gives you at least a very high level overview of what happens when you fight wars. So now let's talk about the actual DLC and how to buy it. I press full screen mode on Steam, so hopefully this works well. But There are a number of DLCs. You have Friends and Foes, Fate of Iberia, Royal Court, Northern Lords. Those are really the big ones to talk about because those are the ones that you're going to be looking at. We have another expansion, which is Royal Court is an expansion, and another flavor pack coming this year that we know of so far. Fate of Iberia and Northern Lords are flavor packs. The flavor packs are smaller additions to the game geared more towards a singular culture, religion, or geographical area, versus the expansion are expansions upon existing mechanics or adding mechanics to the game that are benefited by everyone that plays the game. So, the order of my personal order of hierarchy, which ones are the best DLC that I really don't think you should pass up on versus the ones that I think you could really hold out on until they're on sale or you just really want to pick it up. Fate of Iberia is number one. Fate of Iberia, I think, is the best DLC because it adds so much expansion to the Iberian Peninsula. You are doing the Reconquista. You are fighting as either Al-Andalus or you are fighting as the Christians retaking Al-Andalus, and it's really fun. There is this struggle system that enables you to deal with kind of tipping or de-escalating the conflict. The biggest issue with Fate of Iberia is you cannot just end the struggle outright. You have to always deal with it, which is kind of annoying, but it is really fun. It adds a lot of really cool, awesome mechanics to that region, and those mechanics do bleed into more than just that location. They kind of expand out from there. And again, it's probably one of my favorite locations to play in the game too, with a lot of really cool history. Like, who doesn't want to play El Campeador or El Cid, right? It's really fun. After that is Northern Lords. This one is amazing. This one really expands on the Asatru religion as well as the Norse cultures, adds a ton of stuff to them. It adds really cool. Both of these add really different UIs for those locations, for those cultures, and it makes playing as any of the Vikings awesome. It makes it way more enjoyable than it was the base portion of this game. You have adventures you can do, which basically take your entire location, you uproot it, and you go and attack another location, and that's your new home. Your other one is gone. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do here. And with 867 AD being one of the bookmarks, it's a huge portion because that's like kind of the beginning of the Viking Age. So Northern Lords is almost geared exclusively towards that portion of history. You can take advantage of Northern Lords in 1066, no problem. I'm just saying that 867, almost, I don't know, like a quarter of the map can play with all the cool conventions from Northern Lords. So it's really a really awesome DLC. Third is Royal Court. Now, the flavor packs add a lot to the game that everyone can take advantage of, and in those locations, and it's great and all. But Royal Court is $30. You're basically paying $18 more for a royal court, like a literal royal court that you can actually add banners to. You can add additional adornments and furniture, and you have a court that you can actually deal with. You can have a court every so often, and people will say, hey, I've got these issues to deal with. But it kind of becomes superfluous, and you can completely ignore ever doing anything with the royal court. For $30, to be totally honest with you, it doesn't really land home like the other two do for less than half the cost. I mean, for $13, I get two really good flavor packs, one each, right? And they're great. I mean, in fact, for the price of both the flavor packs, I get more content delivered that actually has a direct impact on the game versus Royal Court, which is more expensive than both of them and doesn't give me a really fun mechanic that is something that I need to interact with. It's something that is kind of more of a fun role-playing thing that you can do, which is cool. It's definitely very awesome for what it is, but at the price point, it's got a low value for the amount of content and longevity. Like I said, like when the Royal Court came out, I played it was really cool, but every playthrough since then, I've never held court because it really kind of can be frustrating. You can actually put yourself in really bad dilemmas. Anytime you have someone in court who says, hey, I need you to do something, it's always probably going to be a bad dilemma. The items you can get from the Royal Court are actually very strong, but dealing with the dilemmas and the issues from it, if you're not an experienced player, will seem almost too punishing. So I put that at number 3. Then lastly, it's the Friend and Foes. Don't get it unless it's like really on sale for less than even $5. It just doesn't really add much. There is a system behind it that's kind of cool, but I just think that it's not really an event pack that's totally worth your time or money. In fact, of all of them, it's the one that's rated the lowest. Let's see if it's on here. Yeah, mostly negative. It's just not worth it. It probably should have been a free LC if anything. That's something to consider too. As I'm talking about all these DLCs and everything, I don't know about these two. To be totally honest with you, I wouldn't even bother with them. I would just use the mods that add in tons and tons and tons of garments. And that's what I was going to get into is Paradox has a ton of things planned for this game. I said tons like 40 times now. A lot of things are going to be added to this game in the next year. They've given us a roadmap, an idea of what the things that they want to focus on. So we know there's a lot of content coming as far as event pack, flavor pack, and expansions to the game, which is awesome. But there is a huge modding community that has really fun stuff that's added into the game. So if you want to play Elder Kings 2, which is geared off of the Elder Scrolls and playing through that whole era, or Lord of the Rings and trying to maybe be Rohan and taking more land as Rohan, you have so many really good mods out there. Some that improve the base game, some that just simply add garments to the base game, some that completely change the base game to be an entirely different era or different everything. So you might not get a ton of replayability from the base game because you might get bored. I don't know. It's a personal thing. But you're going to find so much replayability from the mods. And that's always been a really great thing about Paradox games is being able to play through something different, right? Like Lord of the Rings using the systems of Crusader Kings 3. So that is your buyer's guide here for Crusader Kings 3. And really my kind of closing thoughts there too. Like I absolutely love this game. I've been playing it for years. I've been playing it since it came out, and I always want to come back to it. I always think, you know what, maybe I'm going to do another campaign of CK3. Anyone who's asked me about it, I always tell them, you know, there's a very steep learning curve. You'll get through it, but it's going to be a barrier of entry to you. And I think that of all the Paradox games, it has the easiest learning curve, to be totally honest. Stellaris is close to second. If you've played Stellaris layers its mechanics as you grow in the game, versus Crusader Kings 3 throws all the mechanics at you all at once. But by comparison to Stellaris, there are far less mechanics and far less dense mechanics than Stellaris, which has so many mid to late game, very dense, very complex mechanics. So once you really kind of get your mind around the 6 or 7 really deep mechanics in this game, you'll learn to really, really, really enjoy it and just plummet through the early portions to have a ton of fun. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions or concerns, or you know, hey, this video knocked out a lot of my questions about the game, but I'm still wondering about this, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. And if you do decide to pick it up, please use my Nexus Store to support the channel. And lastly, if you are struggling with anything, I have an ungodly amount of Crusader Kings 3 guides that will pretty much guide you through any portion of the game. They are older, but they are still pertinent because any patch that has come out has not completely disabled the system. It's only made it better. So they've actually done a really good job in making of this video. Their current patch is 1.8, the Robe patch. They've done a really good job of just taking community feedback to make any existing system either better to or easier to understand, or just operates a lot better. So as always, again, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one and take care.